This year marks the 30th anniversary of Michael J. Fox being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Seems a bit odd to celebrate someone being diagnosed with a progressive neurodegenerative condition, but how can you not celebrate a man like Michael J. Fox? He has won 5 Emmy Awards, has created one of the best films in history, raised over $800 million for Parkinson's disease research, and still is working to this day, even though doctors said he would stop after 10 years of diagnosis. So in this video, I'm going to go through what Parkinson's disease is, and even more importantly, 5 things all of us can learn, disabled, non-disabled, non-Parkinsons, from Michael J. Fox. My name is Saramed, if you don't know who I am, and I answer all of your health questions and suggestions. So if that's something you're into and you want to learn more about your health, hit the subscribe button and you will get some good stuff. So to explain what Parkinson's disease is, I am going to explain what the normal situation is. Look at my hand, right? Not that impressive. It's a still, steady hand. Wrong. It's actually very impressive, because to keep this hand still in space actually takes multiple neural pathways through what's called the basal ganglia, which are different areas of the brain that need to connect with each other to regulate movement, create wanted movement, and stop unwanted movement. Now, in Parkinson's disease, you get a dysregulation of this system and you stop the ability to suppress unwanted movement. So you end up with a tremor. You also end up with very slow movement, slurred speech, and as the disease progresses, you can get other symptoms, things like depression, flat face, unable to write or really small handwriting, and so on and so forth. Because it's neurodegenerative, that means that parts of the brain are actually not working and carry on working worse and worse in both structure and in function. So that's what Parkinson's disease does to the brain. And Michael J. Fox has managed to deal with it incredibly well over the years. But there are a few things that need to be clarified with his story. So he was actually diagnosed at such a young age, 29 years of age, which is my age now. I know, I look much younger. But yeah, that's exactly how old I am. And he got told at the time, as I said before, that he would stop being able to work in 10 years, but he actually ended up working 30.
The doctor said, you have Parkinson's disease. He said the good news is you have about 10 years of work left. And that was 22 years ago, and I'm still working 20.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Now the immediate thought is that the doctor who told him that was wrong and dumb. But there's probably a more likely explanation, which is that it's actually very, very difficult to predict the way that a disease is actually going to progress forward. This goes for any disease, not just Parkinson's, but particularly for Parkinson's, you have everyone at the beginning starting out on relatively similar levels. Think of it like a race, a marathon. Some person will win and speed straight to the front, and some person will start lagging behind. When you're at the starting line, everyone starts at the same point. So it can actually be very difficult to figure out where they're going to end up. But something like cancer is much more easy to predict, because people actually start at different starting points in the race. So you can, if they're closer to the end already, you know that they're going to get there quicker. That was a really morbid analogy, sorry, but it kind of makes sense. So when doctors give estimates, let's say you're going to, have an inability to work in 15 years, that would be based on the best available evidence. And that would be an average of people who share the characteristics of the person who it's talking about. But obviously you don't know where exactly that person fits on the different spectrum that gives rise to that average itself. So when a doctor gives an estimate of how long a disease is going to last, how long it's going to be until you get better, the likelihood is they are not going to be right, no matter how confidently they tell you. So doctors are frequently wrong with disease estimates. Now, the second thing we can learn from Michael J. Fox's story came from an interview he was doing with Ryan Reynolds, who's actually supporting his Parkinson's disease cause and foundation. Ryan Reynolds' father also suffered from Parkinson's disease. During the interview, they were saying about how Ryan Reynolds' dad didn't actually want to come out and say he had Parkinson's disease because he's from the older generation who are very stoic, and they don't want to see themselves as being weaker than what they were before the diagnosis. Then following on from that, Michael J. Fox said something very interesting. Take a look.
It's a degenerative progressive disease, so you can't say you can expect this from being associated with me in life henceforth. And also there's a shame in illness.
It's so sad to see him say that, and I think that people who are healthy and who don't have conditions will find it very tough to relate to there being shame in an illness. But those who have dealt with chronic diseases, of you watching, I'm sure can. The sad thing is that that shame is exactly the same thing that makes us feel we want to hide the diagnosis, pretend that there's nothing wrong. But frequently that makes things worse, as Michael J. Fox did hide the diagnosis for 8 years, from 1991 all the way to 99, until he actually came public with it. So the interesting thing is, as soon as you start talking about it, you meet other like-minded people and you actually gain support from others. So as humans, we are naturally pack animals. We're made to work together, to be together, and we love the social environment. And even if we don't offer necessarily a medication or something that can cure a disease, talking can make it better. So there is shame in illness, but support in groups. Now, the third thing I learned from Michael J. Fox was when he was speaking to the Senate. That was in 1999. He'd just come out with his diagnosis, 37 years of age. He's been told he's not going to work. And then this is what he says to the Senate.
What I understood very clearly is that the time for quietly soldiering on is through. The war against Parkinson's is a winnable war, and I have resolved to play a role in that victory.
He wages war on Parkinson's disease. And not only that, but he joins the Senate to get involved with that war too. He actually mobilizes other resources to try and get behind the cause that he wants to. And that teaches us that greatness can truly be achieved when multiple different people with different perspectives, different talents can tackle the problem using their respective talents, and how teamwork is so important if we're going to make progress in a field. And that's any field, not just a medical one.
I just always say I only had to be smart enough to find people that were smarter than me, and I found them. It was easy, and we put them to work on it, and we're doing well.
Now, the fourth thing I learned was while researching Michael J. Fox and his Parkinson's, I came across another individual who had the disease, who was talking about how the cognitive effects of Parkinson's, especially in late disease, are actually worse than the physical effects. And that's not something I knew or appreciated, because when we're talking medical school, we say slow movement, rigidity, tremulousness, that is Parkinson's at its core. But it's been proven, and a paper released by Grover and colleagues in 2015 even looked into the psychiatric effects of Parkinson's disease and found that as soon as people started to lose hope towards the end of the disease, that led to a rapid deterioration, loss of independence, being hospitalized, being sent into a nursing home.
Recently, a Parkinson's study of over 6,000 patients confirmed that mood change, not motion change, was the biggest challenge to the Parkinsonian.
And so if you maintain that positive mindset, that does keep you going for longer. And Michael J. Fox is an example of that. See, last year he actually released a book called An Optimist Considers Mortality. And in that he talks about his mindset, how he's managed to go through multiple different stages of losing his independence and his ability, and he still actually managed to, you know, stay funny. I mean, and stay positive. Like, he looks at such dark situations and he turns them into light ones. To be honest, as a medical doctor, I find that a little bit strange because doctors are so boring. But laughter is the best medicine. So I've decided when I become, you know, medical school teacher or instructor, I'm gonna have a comedy course for the medical students there, and we're gonna do some stand-up together so we can perform for our patients and hopefully keep that smile on their face, as it does make a difference. Now, the last thing, number 5, and probably the most powerful that I learned from this inspirational guy, is a quote that his stepdad said to him, actually. Towards the end of his stepdad's life, he said that the last thing you lose is the future.
Say, gets better, kiddo, gets better. The last thing you run out of is the future. And he lived every day with gratitude. And I realized if there's gratitude, then you can sustain optimism.
And that means no matter what happens, there will always be time to make up for it and to change your destiny. So he was talking about that when basically he got diagnosed with a spinal tumor in 2018, on top of all of the things he's had to suffer with. And he ended up needing spinal surgery and just had to learn how to walk again, fell onto his arm, shattered that, was stuck on the floor, ended up in really the darkest place of his life. And then he was talking about how his wife was joking around with him even when things were tough at that time. And she was like, "Oh, are you listening on the floor? Or I'm gonna go get some shopping. Do you want anything?" "Oh, no. I'll take that as a no." "All right, well, I'm taking the car now." So, you know, it's nice to see that they're still lighthearted between themselves. Looking over that, I think it's just so great that we actually have people like Michael J. Fox who are in the public eye, who can be champions for those with the conditions. I've met so many patients who struggle with Parkinson's disease, its cognitive effects, its motor effects, and the fact that they can look up to someone else who has been so successful is really quite inspirational. So if you've enjoyed this video, you should go and see my other one that I did on Elon Musk and Asperger's, and I'm sure you'll find that interesting too. Consider subscribing if you want to learn more insights into other inspirational people, much more inspirational than me. And I will see you in the next video. Comment below if you have any questions or even suggestions. Take care.